Hey guys, welcome back. It should be Tuesday, and this is the last day of the marking period. So yesterday was an early day. Friday kind of was too. I have an activity day, and still yet again today will be somewhat early. I do have a ton of grading to do. So let's backtrack a little bit. Alrighty. So if you remember from Friday, we did go over the bell ringer. What's Constitution? What powers do we have? Once again, we basically get that from the Bill of Rights. We looked at an early form of colonial democracy, the Mayflower Compact. They're coming over New England, Plymouth, and we kind of got an idea of what it looked like before and the process of basically us settling it. And they weren't the first settlers, right? We still had people in Virginia again, but they're one that we point to and we think of our democracy like this, but it's not exactly like that. So, as a quick refresher, we get so much from so many other people. When our founders and our framers are creating a constitution, they're not just looking at the Mayflower Compact. In fact, once again, for like the third time, it's kind of like just John Adams. Everybody else, they're actually looking at philosophers of their time before Iroquois Magna Carta, William Penn, Thomas Jefferson, what he's writing, English Bill of Rights, tons of different things. Okay. We did take a look at the preamble and what it means. Preamble just being the introduction to our Constitution. So this is just, again, the preliminary introduction to our Constitution, which is just our body of laws, our plan of government. We looked at some of the goals of this, making the government bigger, stronger, but also limiting it. This is where you get the Bill of Rights. This is where you get separation of powers and the balance of powers. We also have majority rule most of the time. We are trying to always respect minority rights. Okay. We also get the federal system being the one that presides over all of the colonies, even though they all have their own governors, their own laws, their own constitutions, their own capitals, their own buildings and everything. You still have one guy in DC, or I guess you could say the branches in DC, that still preside over all of them. So to start, we'll look at the federal government powers. When we think of federal, we think of national. So think of all the 13 colonies, or today you can think of all the 50 states. This would be like the president, the Congress, our executive agencies, executive departments, Supreme Court. That is federal, so it's national. It's not like Judge Gembick, the local judge. It's the Supreme Court justice that looks over everything in our nation. Okay, so it's a lot different. Also synonymous to that is delegated powers. Delegated meaning those given by the federal government or the national government. These powers of the national government include printing money, taxing, controlling foreign trade, promoting the national defense, declaring war, raising and supporting an army, treaties, even a postal service to protect patents and copyrights, to admit new states if we wanted to add Puerto Rico, for instance, and to even set standard weights and measurements. So again, these are examples of delegated powers. And when I say delegated, I mean federal or I mean national, all the same thing, okay? Now the next one is state government powers, and we can think of them as reserves powers. So we have the federal government under the federal system, if we remember, and it sets up delegated powers of the federal government, but then there's ones on reserve. Remember our amendments 9th and 10th, there's states' rights and individual rights. We get reserved powers for the states, and they can do certain things, right? They have their own governors, they have their own buildings, they have their capital. The Constitution grants state powers alone, and they can manage their own affairs. They conduct all elections and even for national offices, right? They're the ones that are establishing the schools. They're regulating trade in the state. They even have their own constitutions. So some examples, as I just said, they do conduct their own elections. They regulate trade within the state. They establish local governments, let's say the city of Shamokin. As I said before, they set up public education, regulations for marriage. They work with a ton of different licenses, such as a marriage license, like nursing license, teaching license, psychologist license, principal certs. They're also the ones that deal with some of the controversial issues left up to states, for instance, with abortion or even marijuana. Like these are things that the states control, and the federal government says, it's up to you guys. We'll let you deal with that. So under our federal system of the states and the national government, they also have shared powers, or we can call these concurrent powers. It means the same thing. So we have some examples of taxing, borrowing money. They both can create banks. They both can enforce laws. They both can punish lawbreakers. They both provide for the health and the welfare of citizens. And they both can take land for public use. Remember our term, eminent domain. And one thing to keep in mind, if there's a state law that goes against a federal law, well, then the state law is null and void and doesn't work. You have to think our Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Pretty much the same thing goes with federal laws. Let's say there's a federal law that, let's say marijuana is legal. Then it doesn't matter if states have it illegal. Okay, that means that it would be null and void because the federal laws are the ones that preside over the state laws. So just to give you one more list, and you can take a look at it. Delegated powers, delegate meaning the federal laws. They can print money, tax, control foreign trade, promote national defense, declare war, raise and support an army, treaties, postal service, protect patents and copyright, admit new states, set standard weights and measurements, as I said before. So here's just one more look at it so you can remember, maybe at least 3 of them or something. Concurrent powers, the ones that they share, well, taxing. They both can tax your state and the federal law. Both can borrow money. They both can create banks. They both can enforce laws. They both can punish lawbreakers. They both provide for the health and the welfare of citizens. They both take land for public use. On the other end, for states, they can conduct elections, regulate trade within a state, establish local governments, cities, townships, boroughs, counties, etc. They work more closely with public education, regulations for marriage, and professional license. And this covers an array of license. So that's all I have for you today. Again, I told you it would be another short day. I do want to cover the review questions, and I want you to answer them in comments on our Google string. So, number 1, explain the goals of the Constitution. So you can go back, you can look at the preamble, and we have a slide on what the goals were. This should help you. Like, what are we trying to accomplish? Number 2, describe the differences between the federal and the state powers. There's some that aren't the same. Can you basically tell me that? Last, list several of the concurrent powers that the federal and state governments share. So what do they do the same? What don't they do the same? And what's the whole point of it? All right. So answer that. Other than that, you also have end of the lesson questions on a Google form. So thanks for bearing with me. I know it kind of got drug out a little bit, but grades are due. It's kind of I guess you could say stressful time. But we'll be all right. Things will get better. The reading will come up here soon, and then we'll work on section 2. All right, guys. Have a good one. See ya.